Takadosh Boker or Masechet Bava Metzia Daf Amud Aleph 71a1. We were speaking about that the Rabbi, the son of Rav Huna, was talking about that the heter that the Mishnah said to take rebit was only speaking about bichdei chayav, which means you're only permitted to take from a goy only in order for you to live, but not just to start making money. Ravina though comes and he says, here we're talking about a case with Talmidei Chachamim askinan. We're talking about a case of Talmidei Chachamim, which means that therefore for them it's permitted to lend it out to the goyim, but other people are not allowed to lend it out to goyim. Says the Gemara, Tama my gazura banan. So why did the rabbis make a decree that you're not allowed to come and lend with their beats to a goy? Shema yilmomi ma'asav, because maybe you're going to come and you're going to learn from it. But since he's a Talmid Chacham, he's not going to come and he's not going to do it, which means like this. If right now you're going to have that a person will come and start lending out, so he's going to say, okay, so I could always lend over a beat, and he doesn't realize. But since he's a Talmid Chacham, he's not going to learn from the actions and he's not going to do it. And some people come and they learn that which Rav Huna said, how the Tanya of Yosef, on that which Rav Yosef taught. It says in the pasuk, "Im kesef talveh tamid ta'ani mach." If you're going to lend kesef to the ani, what does that mean? Ami venochri. If right now somebody from your nation, which means ami, my nation, which is Israel, enochri comes to lend from you, ami kodem. Your nation comes first, but then you have a big yetzirah. I have to lend out to the Jew $1,000 for $1,000 for 0 interest, and I can lend out to the goy. At today, you could get 10% interest. So now, why in the world am I going to lend it out to the Jew? It says no. Ami v'nochri, ami kodem. Ani v'ashir, ani kodem. You have an opportunity to lend out to a rich person, or you have an opportunity to lend out to a poor person. The poor person comes first. Aniyecha v'aniyecha, the aniyim of your family, and aniyecha kodmin. Obviously, your family comes first. But if it's going to be from your city, another city, obviously from your city comes first. Amar More says, he says, one second. You have a Jew and a goy. Obviously the Jew comes first. But Rav Nachman says, Huna says, Huna, what are we dealing with? That was the case, so we just mentioned. That means even though you could lend it out to the goy with ribit, and to the Jew, you have to do it for free. You still have to do it for free, which means that technically, ki'ilu, you're losing money, but it doesn't matter. That's the way that it is, right? That's the way that it's supposed to be. Okay? Tanya, we learned in the Braita. Rabbi Yosef says, Rabbi Yosef, look at the blindness of those people that they lend with their beat. Adam koreh lechavero rasha. A person, right, is going to come and he's going to get into an argument and everything, and he's calling him a rasha. Yoredim lechayav. He's going to come and he's going to hit him. He's going to try to even kill him. Behem, and these people which are melaveh b'ribit, mevi'im edim v'lavlav v'kulmu sudyo v'kotvim v'chotmin ploni zeh kafar b'elokei Yisrael. Meaning, you could have a regular guy, and listen, he calls him a rasha. You want to start fighting with him because he called you a rasha, and you could come, you could hit him, you could this, you could do. But here, pashut, a person that comes and he lends with their beat, they come, they can take a scribe, they write it down, they sign it, and they write down, this guy, he objected the God of Israel. He was kafar belokei Israel. So therefore, imagine right now, right? That means he's actually calling himself a rasha, and people don't realize. He's nicknaming himself a rasha. If somebody calls you a rasha, you would try to even kill him. Here, no. Here, you're calling yourself a rasha. You're the one that's doing it to yourself. So imagine, the guy's going to do it to you. You want to try to kill the guy, right? Imagine I come and say, rasha, mata say. And here, you're doing it to yourself. You don't even have to do anything. You're doing it to yourself. Okay? Tanya, we learned in the Braita. Says, anybody that has money and he lends it out without a rebit, he will never fall. Yeah? So imagine, he's mamash, he won't fall, he won't stumble. So if you do lend out with a rebit, the properties will fall. yeah, he won't have atzlacha in his properties. So it all depends. A person's choice. Does he want to lend out with the beat or without the beat? So ask the Gemara, Raka Chazinan Delomos Fi Beribit. Says 1 second, we find people that they don't lend out beribit. They come into Motatin and they still fall, their properties still fall. So Rabbi Lazar says, Rabbi Lazar, halalo mitmotatin ve'olim. Halalo mitmotatin ve'olim. He says, no, those people, it could be that they fell, but then they're going to come back up. Why? Because it's a galgal choser. Remember that this world is a circle. Sometimes you're on the top of the wheel of fortune, and sometimes you're on the bottom. He says, but these people that they're melaveh beribit, they don't get up again. They fall. Yeah, yeah, but they don't get up. So says the pasuk, right? Lama tabit bogedim taharish bevala rasha sadik mimenu. Why is it that Hashem is going to keep quiet when you have these people that they're going to swallow, meaning a rasha is going to swallow a tzaddik? Why is it like that? So Ravuna says sadik mimenu bolea. This is a Gemara we also learned in Ta'anit and other places as well. Megillah, he says that tzaddik mimenu you could be bolea, but a tzaddik gamur no bolea. But he cannot be tzaddik. He could only swallow up a tzaddik that's a little bit better than him, but not a tzaddik gamur. Meaning this rasha cannot touch a tzaddik gamur. He could only touch a tzaddik that's not greater than him. Even though again there's different languages there in the Gemara, and it's not exactly like what's written over here, but fine. Tanya, we learned to the right. Rabbi Omer. Rabbi says, "Ger tzedek amur linyan mechira, veger toshav amur linyan rebit." We're talking about that a ger toshav, you're allowed to come and to borrow and lend out with rebit. So he comes and he says now like this. He says, a ger tzedek is that somebody that basically was born a goy, and then he accepted upon himself Judaism. A ger toshav only accepts upon himself Sheva Mitzvot ben Noach, and therefore he's permitted to live amongst Israel. But he's not a ger tzedek, obviously, because he's not a true ger. He just is a ger toshav. Ger toshav means he's allowed to live by you. Okay, so he says ger tzedek amur linyan mechira. We're talking about that to do with the sale of an eved ivri. So therefore, if a ben Yisrael comes and sells himself, right, because he doesn't have parnasah, so therefore the Torah comes and speaks about this mechira. So he says this, the mechira, he says, is also included in a ger tzedek, which means obviously, right, that he could sell himself and then he goes out by shemitah. That also applies to a ger tzedek. Okay, ger toshav that it was written to do with rebit, right? En yodea mahu. I don't understand what we're talking about exactly. So here it says to do with rebit. It says v'chiyamuch achicha ger v'toshav v'chaymach. So it says the Gemara, ger tzedek amul inyan mechida. So we just said that to do the ger toshav, right? To do the rebit, it says ger v'toshav v'chaymach. You're not allowed to take rebit. So now here it says ger toshav in the pasuk. So pashut it's mashma that you're not allowed to lend him a rebit. So let's see what goes on exactly. So it says like this: ger tzedek amul inyan mechida. Ger tzedek that is brought down to do with mechida, which means do you realize that the Gemara just doesn't say something and then we jump on the Gemara? The Gemara says something and then the Gemara is going to explain. Right, so therefore we just have to learn patience, right, until we understand what the Gemara is speaking about. Obviously, it's fine, but again, we're here to learn. That's the purpose. So ger tzedek amur inyan mechida, to do a ger tzedek, which is brought down to the mechida v'divri. Tichtiv, it says in the pasuk, when you have a person that he becomes poor and he has to sell himself to you, velo lecha, and we're not talking about a Yisrael gamur. Right? Ela leger. Even if he's going to sell himself to a ger, shenemar v'nimkar leger, meaning not only a Jew selling himself to another Jew, even if a Jew is going to sell himself to a ger. Now we're not talking about a ger tzedek, even because a ger tzedek is like a regular Jew. Even a ger toshav, meaning you have a regular Jew that he became poor, he had to sell himself. Not only is he selling himself to another Jew, not only is he selling himself to another ger tzedek, even if he's going to sell himself to a ger toshav. Says the Gemara, Shneimar leger toshav, lemishpachat ger ze anochri. So then the pasuk says that even if the Jew is going to be sold to a goy, it says mishpachat ger ze anochri. As keshu omer ole eker, what does it mean now ole eker? Ze animkar la'avodat kochavim atzma. This is somebody that he's going to sell himself to avodat kochavim himself, itself, meaning the actual, as if they say to the church, to the actual avodah zarah in itself. Okay, that's the explanation of eker. Right, because he's uprooting le'aker. So Rashi says the kavanah is the person that comes and he's, for example, cutting wood or drying water for the avodah zarah. Right? I mean, it's not that he himself is doing avodah zarah, but that's obviously yareg vel yavor. He has to kill himself for it. But he's doing services for the avodah zarah. So therefore, right, there's a mitzvah to come and to redeem him. Okay. Now, obviously, if he sells himself to become an avodah, meaning to do avodah zarah, obviously there's no mitzvah. If a person comes and he says he's going to become now Christian, right? There's no mitzvah to come and start redeeming him. You understand? But if he had to sell himself because he was so poor, and he had to sell himself, whether it's going to be to a ger toshav or to a goy, or even to the avodah zarah, but not obviously doing the avodah zarah mamash, there's a mitzvah for us to come and to redeem him. So ger tzedek, you also have to redeem him. Don't say, listen, anyway, he was born goy, leave him. No, there's a mitzvah for you to come and to redeem him. Okay? So Amar More says, Velo lecha ela leger. Right? How do we know it's not only just sells it to you, but he sells it to a ger tzedek, shenemar leger. What? Can a ger actually acquire an eved ivri? Well, meaning we have a contradiction. A ger is not going to be acquired as an eved ivri, and a woman or a ger cannot acquire an eved ivri. So if right now here it's written in Furash that a woman, right, obviously for certain reasons, right, and also a ger cannot come and acquire an eved ivri, how does this person come and acquire, right, this eved ivri? How does it work? So says the Gemara, ger lo nikne be'eved ivri. Ger is not going to acquire an eved ivri because it says that mishpachto ba'inan ve'leka. You have to give him back to his owner, meaning to his family, and he doesn't have it. Meaning a ger does not have family. Remember that a ger, the second the guy becomes a ger, that's it. He's complete. Some people think, no, it's their child. Is that the person, the second he becomes a ger, he's ben Avraham Avinu. He has nothing to do with any family. He could have siblings, parents, children, anything that you want.
Nothing.
Nada. He's completely a new entity. Yeah, that's what a person becomes. So you don't have that. So for obviously a ger is not going to acquire an eved ivri. The end, right? That means a ger cannot be acquired as an eved ivri. The end isha ger konin eved ivri. Isha lavorachara. He says it's not derech eretz. Why? Because imagine right now the guy could have yichud with his mistress, and then she acquired for herself a moral slave. You understand? So no, it doesn't work. Ger nami also ger gimide. We have a kabbalah. The mikne kane, something that's going to be acquired as an eved ivri can also acquire an eved ivri. Telo mikne lo kane, but if he cannot be acquired, meaning the ger cannot be acquired as an eved ivri because when you have to let him free, he has to go back to his family. He doesn't have a family. Right, but it doesn't say Yeshuv Mishpachto. There's no Mishpacha. He's a new entity. So therefore, just like he cannot be acquired as an Eved Ivri, he cannot acquire an Eved Ivri. Meaning it has to work both ways. So therefore, if he cannot become an Eved Ivri, he cannot acquire an Eved Ivri. That's the Gemira. That's a Kabbalah. Remember that they have a Kabbalah Masoret. They have this tradition. Okay, so it comes out. So then, how do we talk about then that the get tzedek is becoming an eved ivri and all these things? How do we go back to that? So Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, he says, no, eno koneh vedino ki Yisrael, aval koneh vedino kenochri. He says, no. When the Braita comes and the Braita said that a ger is not going to be a koneh of an eved ivri, it's not the pshat that he's not going to be koneh at all. But rather, the pshat is not going to be koneh, right, like a Yisrael that is buying an eved ivri. But he's going to be koneh just like a nochri, which is going to be koneh auto, which means the Kabbalah is that only somebody that's a Yisrael Gamur can acquire an Eved Ivri. That he was said in the parasha also of Yisrael koneh Eved Ivri. But a ger, which was not written in this pasuk, he could acquire an Eved Ivri just like a goy could acquire an Eved Ivri. And therefore, it's like a goy that's buying it. So it's not like a Jew that's buying it. The Gemara is going to immediately explain what's the difference between a Jew or a goy buying an Eved Ivri. So there's going to be a difference. Yeah? Should we turn up there? So he says like this. The Tanya was learned in Braita. Okay, soon. You want to stand up? Hanirtza. You know what a nirtza is? We're not talking about nirtza of the Agada. Yeah? The nirtza is of the ozen. Yeah? That they pierced his ear. So we're talking about an Eved Ivri that after the 6 years, right? They came Shemitah, he doesn't want to go free. He wanted to stay there until Yovel. So they come and they pierce his ear to the mezuzah. Yeah, eno oved lo et ben velo et bat. So it says over here, whether we're talking about an irtza or somebody that's going to be sold to a goy, eno oved, he's not going to serve not the son or the daughter, but immediately after the death of the master, he goes out free. Which means to do with an Eved Ivri, obviously he still serves the children. So but here, yes, obviously, because he's an Eved Ivri, right? It would only become the 50 years if he becomes a Nirtzah.
If the guy dies, they get.
Yes, 100%. But here, when we're talking about the soul to a goy, the second that the master dies, hasta la vista, au revoir. Yeah? Fine. Amar Mor says, Ve'en isha v'ger konin eved ivri. A woman and a ger cannot acquire an eved ivri. Neima, why don't we just say Nalak Rashbag? Right? The Tanya was went to the Braita. Isha konat shvachot. Ve'ena konat avadim. A woman could buy a maidservant, but she can't buy a slave. Rashbag Omer, Rashbag says, no, she could also buy a slave. So, afilu tema Rashbag, if you're going to tell me Rashbag, will ask a question. Kam eved ivri, kam eved kanani. There's a difference between eved ivri and eved kanani. Meaning, a woman could acquire, the one that's prohibited, someone an Eved Ivri. But when the Rashbag said it's permitted, she's allowed to buy an Eved Kenani. Now, why? What's the difference exactly? He says, Eved Ivri tzani Allah. Right? He's kilu sanua in the eyes of the Gvira. And therefore, if they're going to do any type of a sin, the Eved won't come and start saying it to anybody. Meaning, right? The goy will come, the Eved Kenani will come, and he'll just blab away to everybody. And therefore, that's why she won't actually do it. Meaning, when it's the exact opposite of what we would have thought. We would have thought, listen, you know, she could have buy an Eved Ivri, but not no, the exact opposite. Because an Eved Ivri, he's going to keep quiet. So therefore, she's doing moral things with him. But that's it, right? He's going to keep quiet. Nobody will say anything, and that's it. Eved Kenani will go around, start saying it to everybody. So that's it. So she won't do such a thing. Okay? So it's like a control, right? And what we're doing. So says the Gemara, we just spoke about the difference between the two. So the Gemara asks, Rabbi said that which Rabbi Yosef taught. Armelata lo terbe kalba. An almana cannot have a dog. Why? Because the same thing. Listen, she doesn't have a husband. So maybe after a little while, it could be that she's going to start doing something with the dog. It's a Gemara. Why are you making faces? Yeah, it's a Gemara. And she cannot have a Talmid Yeshiva like for her, right, in the house either, right? So here it says, Lav Dav Kol V'Sei Talmid Yeshiva. It's anybody that she cannot have in there in the house because it's a yichud problem, right? But even if it's going to be, there's other people also similarly, meaning a Bachur Yeshiva, meaning that at the end of the day, the guy that's not married and she's an almanah, even if there's going to be another guy there, another day there, there's no really halachot of yichud, she shouldn't have all these things. Why? Because we suspect for foul play. Yeah. So Bishama Bar Berav, I understand Bar Berav, Sniala. It's going to be Tsanua, the same name. Ela Kalba, Kevin the Misrach Ba Mirtata. He says once she does it, he's always after, which means everybody's going to find out because the second that she does it once with the dog just goes all over her. And then you come and you start saying to yourself, hey, this is weird. What's going on with this dog? With the dog's, jumping all around her, there's a problem here. You understand? I mean, it looks weird. Yeah. So therefore, the same thing like the Eved Kanani, the dog will be the same thing. So Amri, they said, since when she throws him a little bit of piece of meat, that's it. He goes away. Amri, what? Well, that's why he says mishum umtza de. So it could be that it's because of the meat that he's going after her, not because bemet he's doing other things with her. It's because of the meat. So she threw a piece of meat, and from then on, they're always following her. So therefore, again, that's why there's going to be a difference. So one more time. By the way, this is actually brought down to do with the what's it called? There's a whole question here. The Rambam and others want to say that there's no Isur Doraita to actually have a dog, but it's only just because of Lasut Sfatayim. Lasut Sfatayim means because of like Maritain that people will talk. But not that we really suspect that she's going to do such a thing, because we don't suspect that Jews are doing such a thing, right? But Rashi said that yes. So there's a machloket rishonim.
That she would do something with the dog.
Yeah, meaning we don't want people to talk. We don't want people to say, "Listen, you know what? She could have gotten remarried. Why didn't she get remarried? She got herself a dog. Okay, you understand?" So he says, "Ger toshav amul inyan rebit." Now we're going to the part that Richard didn't understand. So the Gemara says to do with the ger toshav, to do with the rebit. Mai, what are we talking about exactly? It says in the pasuk, "V'chiyamuch achicha umata yado imach v'echzakta bo ger toshav v'chay mach al tikach me'ito neshek v'tabiv yareta menoech v'chay achicha mach." Here we're talking about a ger toshav that you're not allowed to take rebit from him as well. So meaning here we have a contradiction. Lovin mehenu malvin otam rebit v'chem ger toshav. You are allowed to do with rebit. What are you telling me now that you cannot come and start lending to a ger toshav? Here's what you could. It's a stira. So Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says in Nachman bar Yitzchak. Yeah, mi ketiv is written. Al tikach me'itam. You're not allowed to take from them. Itam is plural. It says al tikach me'ito. What does that mean? The pasuk is saying shelo tikach neshek v'tabid me'achicha, which is from the previous pasuk, which is the Israel, not from the ger toshav. The ger toshav you are allowed to take the beat. It's a Jew that you're not allowed to take. Yes, that you're not allowed to take it. Okay. So he comes and he says, Tanu Rabbanan. So we learned in the Braita, Al tikach me'ito neshek v'tarbit, aval ata na'asa lo arev. That means you're not allowed to take neshech, right, for rebit, but you could become for him, right, an arev. What's an arev? A guarantor. Yeah, Ayin Aleph Amud 71b. So says the Gemara, arev leman. Who are you becoming an arev for? Right? Who's the one that's lending the beat that you're allowed to become a guarantor for? Who are you allowed to become a guarantor for? If it's going to become an arev for Israel, we already learned in the Mishnah, right? Where we're going to learn in the Mishnah later on. Elu ovrim belo ta'aseh. These are the ones which are going to transgress the negative commandment. Hamalveh v'aloveh he'arev v'ayedim. Everybody in the picture. Meaning you have the borrower, you have the lender, you have the witnesses, and you have the guarantor. Every single person in that story, when there's going to be a rebit involved, they are over belav. Yeah, we learned this already to do with witnesses, that even the witnesses that are there, right? Everybody's over in love. So therefore, what's the case that you're allowed to become a guarantor? If we're talking about a regular case of a Jew to another Jew, so what are you talking about? You're not allowed to become a guarantor. You just did an averah when you become a guarantor. So says the Gemara, Ella lenochri. We're talking about a goy that lends to a Jew. So when a goy lends to a Jew, you're allowed to become a guarantor to pay back the entire loan, even though there's interest involved, obviously, because the goy is allowed to charge you interest. So Amar Rav Sheshat, the Kevan the Dine Denochli Dazil Batararva. So says the Gemara, but 1 second. But the mishpat of the goyim is that they go straight after the arev, right? Even without going to the lover, meaning it's like an arev kablan, it's like a guarantor that you go directly to the guy. That's their rules. So iu niu de kashaki mine rebita, he's going to be taking the rebit because he himself has to come and he took the halva of the principal and he accepts upon himself the principal with the rebit. So how could it be then that it's going to be permitted? So Amar Rav Sheshat says Rav Sheshat, Shekibel elav ladum bedinei Yisrael. The goy accepted upon himself to judge like a Yisrael, and therefore first he's going to go to the borrower, and then only if he doesn't have, right, then he goes to the guarantor. Now in such a case, he's not considered that the guarantor borrowed from the goy from the beginning, because the goy cannot collect from him immediately. So therefore, only when he could come in and collect immediately, then it's considered that he actually, as if to say that he's borrowing it from it immediately. Nevertheless, when he's giving back the loveh to the arev, the money, it's not considered a rebit, right? He says because he's taking the principal, right, and he's paying back the entire thing. But if he's going to go directly to him, so then if he would have to pay him back the loan with the rebit, it would be considered that he's actually accepting the rebit. Okay? So says the Gemara, if the goy is already accepting to do like a Jew, so then he shouldn't take rebit at all. If he's already accepting like a Jew. So says the Gemara says, no. I know. He only said he's going to accept upon himself, right, the entire concept of ladun b'dinei Yisrael, but not interest. Interest, no. He's going to get interest. but he'll go to a Jewish basin. There's no problem. He'll go to a bedin. Says the two dots. Malvei Yisrael ma'otav shel nochri midat nochri. So a Jew is allowed to lend out the money of a goy, midat a goy, with ribit. Okay, to another Jew. Yeah, so a Jew, I've got money of Tom, Dick, and Harry. Yeah, and I come and I say, Richard, you want to borrow money? No problem. Interest. You say, Rabbi, we're Jews. Yeah, but it's not my money. It belongs to the goy. So you're allowed to do that. Richard, it's a Mishnah. Mishnah says, no, that for sure not. So Tana Rabbanan, we learned in the right. A person could lend out his money, right, of the goy to a goy. What's the case exactly? If the Jew borrowed money from the goy with ribit, and he wants to give it back to him, another Jew finds him and he tells him, listen, give it to me. I'm going to give it to you just like he gives it to me. Sorry, just like he gave it to you. Asur is not. It's asur. Meaning it's a pass on. You can't do that. You can't pass it on.
Your son, it's a credit card bill.
Exactly. Yes, credit card bills are very problematic. Now, if right now, right, he puts it to a nochri, right, meaning if he actually give it back, he sends him to the nochri, midat nochri, it's going to be mutar. Meaning that since the goy knows about it, so then it's going to be permitted to do such a thing. Okay, because it's kilu, it's not coming from the Israel, it's coming from the nochri. Meaning as long as the nochri knew about it, it's going to be okay. Another case now, which is the opposite. A goy, that he comes and he borrows money from a Jew with ribit, and he wants to give it back, and he found another Jew, and he tells him, give it to me, and I'm going to give it to you, just like mutar. Then it's going to be mutar. Why? Because the Jew did not do the loan. It was the goy that did the loan. So that, and he was allowed to loan with ribit. But if now the Jew knows about it, it's going to be asur. Because that means, meaning the exact opposite. Because now it's kilu that the Jew is the one that's lending it out. So it's going to be asur. So says the Gemara. Bishlama seifa. I understand the seifa. Right? What's the seifa talking about? That we're talking about that if the goy comes and he tells that it belongs to the Jew, lechumna, because it's lechumna. But in the Reisha, Kevin den shlichut lenochri, iunihu de kashaki minabita. He says, 1 second, there's no shlichut for the goy. So if there's no shlichut to the goy, what does that mean now when the Jew is lending out the money again, even if the goy knows about it, but there's no shlichut? And therefore, the Jew's the one that's taking the rebit. Not the, what do we say in the Reisha? We said in the Reisha, if the goy knows about it, the Jew is allowed to come and lend it to the second Jew. Because then it's kilu that the goy is doing the loan. And shlichut lenochri. So if there's no shlichut for the goy, I'm that first Jew. I cannot be the shliach of the goy. And therefore, since there's no shliach of the goy, I'm the one that's lending you the rebit. So if it's prohibited, so it's prohibited. I understand the Reisha, it was a seifa is chumrah, okay, fine. But the Reisha is the problem. So Amar Ravuna, right, says, Ravuna b'manoch mishmed ravacha bered ravika. Hacham asking, what are we dealing with? For example, the Elmaleh that he says, Hanihem al gabe karka v'ipater. So no, put it on the floor and become patur. Which means that the first borrower, which was a Jew, completely removed his what's the word? Not jurisdiction. It's like he completely removes himself from the case. Because the
whole other case, that case is over, finished.
Exactly, because basically what did the goy do? The goy just said, put it on the floor, and that's it. And then you're done your deal. He puts it on the floor, and that's it. So now when the second Jew comes and he picks it up, he's picking it up from the first goy. There's no connection between the second Jew and the first Jew. So says the Gemara, if so, what's a chidushin? Obviously. So answers the Gemara, rather if Papa says, he says, no, he says he took it and he gave it to him in his hand. Meaning, the Malve took the money from the Noch himself, from the first Love, and he gave it to the second Love. So in such a case, since the Love Shani got the money from the Malve, the Nochri, and not from the Jew, that's why it's going to be okay. So says the Gemara, still what's a chidush? At the end of the day, if you gave it back directly to the Goy, and now the Goy comes and he gives it to the Jew, to the second Jew, So what's the chidush? Obviously, like what's the problem? So says the Gemara, I would have thought to say Nochri Gufei Ki Avid, right? The Nochri himself, when he's doing this, Adaita Disael Kagami Vei, he's giving it because of the first Jew. So Kamashmalan, he's doing it on his own accord. He's doing it on his own accord, nothing to do with the first Jew, and therefore there's not going to be a problem. Ravashi comes and he says, Ki Amrinan En Shlichut Lenochri. When do we say that there's no Shlichut for a Nochri? Hanamile V'Truma, only to with Truma. B'Chol Torah Kula, there is Shlichut Lenochri. So therefore, if there is Shlichut for a Goy, so therefore you're his Shaliach. What's the problem? And if you're a Shaliach, even though you're giving it directly from the first Jew to the second Jew, you're only a Shaliach. There's no problem. Okay? So says the Gemara, 1 second, but how could that be? I thought that we said that Ravashi doesn't exist, meaning that it's not correct. Maishna Truma, what's the difference with by Truma? Right? He says the law. It's written atem, kamatem, you guys, only you guys. Ma'atem just like you guys are shomer Torah mitzvot. So to your shaliach, it's also has to be benevrit. Shlichut dechol Torah kol anami mitruma. We also learn it from Truma, right? So therefore, obviously, Ravashi is barutai. So if Ravashi is going to be like an outside Braita, that means we don't pass it like it. So therefore, it doesn't exist. Okay, until here we're clear. Very good. Ika de Amri. There are those that say, Amr Ravashi. Ravashi says, Ki Amrina. When do we say Shlichut Nochri? Hanamilu inu lididan. Only from them to us, but us to them we can make a shaliach. That's what some people say. Meaning to do the shlichut of them for us, that Anochri cannot make a shaliach into Israel, but we could come and we can make them into a shaliach. Okay, so says the Gemara, the Had Ravashi Beruti. I thought you said that it doesn't, that the Ravashi we don't hold like Ravashi. What's reasoning for them to us? No, because it's written atem gamatem shluchem. Matem benim, just like you guys have a rit, meaning a shomer Torah mitzvot. So to your shaliach is shomer Torah mitzvot. It works the same way. Matem benim kamad. And the Ravashi Beruti again the same thing, meaning that both. Doesn't matter how you learn it, whether it's going to be that it's only by Truma or it's by everything, but it's only a one-sided street instead of a two-sided street. It doesn't matter. We don't paskin like Ravashi, which means that there's no shlichut, not both sides, and not only by Truma, but by B'chol Torah Kula as well. Until you're clear? Yeah? Fine. Ravina Amar, Ravina comes and he says, even though there's no shlichut, he says, there is zechiyah midrabbanan, which means even though there's no shlichut, and therefore he cannot become a shaliach, but there is a concept of zechiyah midrabbanan, which means that he could acquire it for him midrabbanan, just like by a katan, that you could acquire it for them midrabbanan. So therefore, right, it's the same thing by us. Meaning, you're right, he cannot be a shaliach, but he's acquiring the money for him midrabbanan, and therefore it's his. Except for when he gives it to the second Jew, it's like zechiyah midrabbanan. You're right. It's not mitzad shlichut. He can't be a shaliach. So says the Gemara, katan lava gav delet le shlichut. Katan, even though there's no shlichut. Yeah. So he says, itle zechiyah midrabbanan. There is going to be zechiyah midrabbanan. Achanami yishna. So to here, there's not going to be a difference, right? Which means that there's going to be zechiyah mitakana chachamim. So to do the goy. So answers the Gemara, v'lo, it's not true. Israel will become Jewish. And therefore, since he's going to become Jewish, the rabbis came and they instituted Zechiyah midrabbanan. But in Ovet Kochavim, he will never become the Klas Shlichut. So because of that, they never instituted a concept of Zechiyah midrabbanan.